Dear audience, in our Meet the Expert session, we usually listen from one local or international expert on various topics. Today, we are going to listen on civil and human rights in the Ukraine war. You all know, recently, Russia started invasion on Ukraine, and it became cause of many human sufferings in various cities of Ukraine. So in this war, we observe how civilians are suffering, how a non-balanced war is going on, and how a big country attract on a smaller neighboring country without any acceptable reason. Therefore, in this stage, we can only recall before 1948, where during the World War I and II, or before, world civilization was suffering from various types of discrimination, various violence against women, violence against children, violence against racial ethnicity, racism, and many more. But after Second World War, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights has been adopted by the United Nations, and people started to practice human rights and civil rights in various parts of the world. But after too many years, we are observing that many powerful countries are starting invasion on less powerful country without any reason or with false reason. We observed the same scenario in various wars recently, in Iraq war, in Afghanistan war, in Ukraine war. So in every war, it is common that civil people, social people had sufferings and loss of lives, loss of wealth. So in this context, today we are going to listen from Mr. Justin Baily. He is from Wisconsin, USA. He will be speaking on civil and human rights in the Ukraine war. So before starting the session formally, I would like to humbly request you, sir, could you please introduce yourself with me and my audience? Over to you, sir.
I am Justin Baily. I am a civil rights major, soon to be transferring to Cornell Law School. And the issues that I have with human rights in general, especially in circumstances of loss of respect for borders of sovereign nations and sovereignty and local customs and laws and social dynamics therein, is an unnecessary invasion, very unnecessary. And there are countless atrocities that are just absurd. The bombing of a maternity ward, really? That's horrible. That's completely against the Geneva Conventions, UN NATO peace protocols, held so many other treaties. I apologize for my language. But we can't allow it to continue. Too many women and children are being hurt, civilians. This is not a war. This is just straight up, well, I hesitate to use the word, but it's just straight up abusive. I don't see the reason to focus so much on differences. I think we should focus as this human race on our commonalities, if not for the best interest of ourselves, for the best interest of our children.
Thank you very much, sir. Before going to the session formally, could you please explain what do you mean by human rights and what are the elements you would like to mention here?
Well, general attacking of civilians, rape, murder, just general right to exist is being threatened, among other things threatened. people have a right to security, I believe, to safety, and that, well, people just generally have a right to thrive, to do as best as they can. If we are, as a person, more adept, more capable of doing one thing or the other than someone else, though knowing that we are not better than anyone and they are not better than us. Don't we owe it to those people who are less capable to lift them up instead of holding people down, so that the people that are come up faster by being lifted up are thereby more able to pull people up who need more lifting up?
So we know there are some differences between human rights and civil rights. So in the civil rights part, could you please explain what are the civil rights are, and how Russian invasion on Ukraine is violating those civil rights or against the civil rights?
Well, I don't know the Ukraine's constitution. I haven't looked over it. I haven't looked up any of their major sticking points on their constitution and mission statement, as it were. But their right to safety, I believe that they have a right to education, that people generally, I'm not trying to impose my will on any sovereign nation or thereof. I just think that people have a right to an education, they have a right to safety, they have a right to well-being, and they have a right to exist. And, well, they have a right to opportunity.
Yes, perfect. It is actually the common sense of human rights are a right to live. That means everyone born in this world with his right to live, right to freedom, right to justice, right to equality, right to healthcare, right to marry or have a family, right to education, right to work or have a job or have a business, right to home or a shelter, right to freedom of expression, right to practice any religion he would like to, and of course, right to own property, and with right to vote or the democracy. So we know these are the common or universal human rights, but when a country involved with any war or face any invasion, then obviously these sort of rights has been distorted by the invasion power. This scenario is equally similar what we observe in many parts of the world, including Palestine, including Ukraine, including other parts of the world. So what is your message to maintain the human rights by the invention, the occupying power?
I don't know. I just think that in the interest of unity, that peace and diplomacy should be tried before disregarding or disrespecting the sovereign borders and sovereignty of a nation in general. I think that we as a species need to focus on helping one another and not destroying everything. It doesn't make any sense to burn everything you built down and then complain because it sucks. You know, I just think that we should stop killing each other.
That is, you are suggesting to have a diplomatic action before going or before starting any war, because war is always destructive. It always destroys human life as well as wealth. But if we can avoid this sort of